Here we go, here we go, here we go. And welcome. So I have got all of my line work, all of my buildings tucked up away over here, and they are ready for the parallax. I could bring this into After Effects now and get a successful result with the style that we're looking for. And as always, if you guys keep in mind our back buildings, that if it's working at this stage, if things are looking right, if it's looking correct, if it looks interesting, if you got good line movement, a good level of detail that's happening within your shot, then the more stuff that you add to it, the better it's going to look. There's some things that I'm still kind of debating about, like, for example, this blue building here right in the middle. I feel like I could probably add a logo to the side of it, and that would be like a nice little extra layer of detail within there. But I'm thinking about the way my shot is going to work. So here is where my scene is going to start off on. You can see that we're really not going to see any of these big buildings up in the top, but I do want to be able to post this whole shot on Instagram and share it out within my portfolio. So I'm just going to go ahead and render those tall buildings that are above this white box. And then the camera is going to move over to the left, and then it's going to lock up in this position. Let's turn that one off. And now I want to zoom in here so you guys can actually see what position 2 is going to look like. So position 2, you can see it's got a ton of interest. We are really in the thick of this city now as we start to get in here. That's kind of closer to what it's going to look like on your screen. And you can see all that layering of the buildings that's going on, and we got a really tight, complex shot. So we really haven't been able to see the sky within our scene up until this point. Now, as the buildings start to merge, we're going to scroll up, and we're going to see some skies start to appear, and we're going to see all the building cranes within the shot, and they're going to be moving at different paces. And it should look pretty nice as we start to move up into the sky. So ending on frame number 3 with this final lockup with the, maybe someone's in there working. And that's where these shots are heading. Now, I want to talk to you real quickly about the way that I've got these set up. So I do have folders created. Normally, if you're just doing a flat background or something that's going to be exported as it doesn't need layers, or it doesn't have parallax set up, I don't always create folders. Not the biggest fan of them, just because when I'm using my layer select, I have to go, just that little tiny movement drives me a little crazy. I know, I'm gotten lazy at my old age, but this is going to help me just be able to keep things separated so that I can easily find, and each one of these folders represents what I'm going to be collapsing down at the very end. So before we get into painting the shadows, I just want to go through and do a quick breakdown of my various layers. So for the parallax effect, you can think of each one of these folders that I have within my layers properties as being on a plane of glass. So all of these far background buildings are all together on the same plane of glass. All of these buildings right here are also on the same plane of glass. I think there might be a little bit of lag here. Yeah, so you can see how nicely those are starting to layer up together. Then on top of that, we have my water tower building. That little guy, these fellas, these 3 here in a row, the one that's Cruise with the billboard with the little chicken wings on there, and then this third one, those are doing something interesting for this second shot. And that's where I want the parallax really to exist. So that's why they are broken up that much. Got my Porto building just so it's moving just a little bit offset to the water tower building. That's why I've got it on a separate layer. And then my scaffolding over on the far left-hand side, I've got the back scaffolding built up, the crane, and then the front scaffolding so that I can have just a little bit of movement that's occurring within that building as well as we start to zoom up, just so that things are moving at slightly different speeds. And then, of course, we've got our big old front zone here. And that puts my whole scene together. So I've got it broken up into its different layers. Hopefully, while I was pulling those layers up, you can see just how much I painted behind everything as well. So the front of the building, you can see that there's a whole bunch of windows on the water tower building, this yellow one over on the right-hand side. There's windows down there that are not showing up, but just in case anything, I want to do anything else with the parallax, that can occur. I've also got my laundry on its own layer so that I can add a mesh warp and give it a little bit of movement. I've been thinking about some other things that I'd like to do within this shot. Maybe I could have like birds flying through the city, or if I can find some pigeons on a green screen, have them sort of moving around on the rooftop as well. It could look pretty interesting just to be able to give the space a little bit more life. Now, my colors. I have picked my colors from this particular shot. And I like this shot because we've got lighting that's coming in from the top right-hand side. I also like the way that they're handling the clouds in this scene. And though the clouds aren't really being affected by the light too much, so that's a bit of an issue. But I like the dark blue over here, that one side's shaded and the other side's getting lots of sun. And they've got some shadows that are coming off of the buildings as well. So I want to see if I can create something like this within my shot. And from what I can tell, this artist hasn't gone through and painted everything individually. I think they colored everything without. Oh look, thank goodness, this piece looks so clean. But they've got a square here that they've brushed through and messed up, and some lines that are sticking over the edge too. So there is hope for us to be able to get this this type of shading style working within our scene. But what I think they've done here is they have got one shadow layer that they've kind of overlaid over these buildings that they colored. And so we're going to approach our building colors with this same idea. And I think I pulled my my rooftop color from what's going on over here. And if I had to guess, I would say that the shadow color is something very similar to this dark blue right here. So I'm going to start off on my rooftop, and let's run a tester, right? Because we want to make sure that before I apply this shadow to the rest of my shots, likely I can get away with this color within the foreground. It looks like there's a different color that they've done on the left-hand side over here for the brick buildings. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Let's give it a try. So now we've got our front building, and we've got our flat color layer. So I can hold down Control and select my icon. And then on top of there, I can go in and I can start painting in some of these shadows. So since I know that the light is coming from the left-hand side, I'm going to go in a little bit closer here. And let's start having some fun with this. I can shade in all of this stuff. The light's going to hit it. Same thing goes for this side of the brick. And in the same way that I've been color blocking in the front of my, or color blocking in all my scenes, I'm doing the same thing with this shadow layer. So one layer is going to get shadow, one side is going to get shadow, the other is not. It's all going to be in shadow. Something goes with the top of this. This guy. All this stuff under here is going to be in shadow. here. I'm going fairly big and fast. I'm using my brackets to increase my brush size. I can start to fill this stuff out in as quickly as possible because I've got a lot of buildings in front of me that I need to do. So I'm thinking about the amount of time that I have. I can spend the next 6 months rendering this entire shot and still not feel like I have the shadows absolutely right. So we have to come up with a system, you know, if you're working in a studio, to be able to get these things out the door sooner than later. Just like when you became a master level Crayola marker user. Just see out some of these holes here. Gosh darn it, I painted them. We're going to use them. We've got half of this guy. Oops. And we've got a shadow that's going to carry over from this wall out. So I'm going to set this whole shadow layer to an overlay at the end, and that should give me the result that I'm looking for. So that way I'm not having to go in and shade each one of these parts. Instead, I'm creating sort of a global shadow within this shot. Yeah, I'm still haven't shaded any of these things individually. So what I'll likely do is when we look at this, we can see that we've got the big flat colors, the tan colors. I'll pick like a secondary color for each one of these buildings, which is kind of what they have going on here. They have a secondary color, and then they have a window color on them. And once I add that secondary color to these buildings, we should see them really start to come to life. Yep. Making choices. Let's say that the shadow is going to go right across like here. That works pretty well for what it is that I'm trying to do. And now, got my blocks within my scene as well. So these guys, half of them is going to be shaded. All right. I'm going to set the overlay here in just a moment and see if this is giving me the result that I want for this section of the shot. So far, it's looking pretty good. Let's turn it to overlay or mess with the layer interpretation, see how this is looking. All right, we got a purple. There's the overlay. So that's giving us pin light might be closer to what it is that we're looking for. Let's leave that shadow layer the way it is for now. So let's try messing with a brick color up on top of this roof. So this is my brightest brick layers in the shot. And so what I'm hoping here is that as I start to give me a green. And that's not what we want it to be, a dark brown. Green's cool, it's interesting, but it look really weird. Start doing this shot. So just checking it now before I get too invested in this, and we'll get this part squared away and working. That's on pin light. Try the layer interpretation again. Okay, so that's giving me a darker color brown, but it's not doing much for the tan. There we go, that blue kind of working there. Oh. All right, so that's luminosity, and that is darkening it up. Pretty normal. And let's change this. My classic choice is always to go with like a purple color. Image adjustments, use saturation. That's working pretty well for me. Darker colors just give me a dark purple. That's not what I want. There we go. I think hard light is going to do the job that I want it to. Throughout my scene, it should work pretty well. So onwards. Go back to that orange color and just make this end just a little better. Yeah, that's working. Okay. Let's just, before we get out of here, let's test it one more time. With a cement color. Oh, yeah, that's working for me. And now let's do one more check on it. Yeah. Gray. Okay. These things are going to be gray also. Cool. That makes me feel like I'm on the right track here. Now I can always take away the saturation on this purple as I move into back layers. And then I'm in a good spot to be able to add some highlights as well. I want to. Now I'm starting to get my colors figured out here. Yeah, I think we can move forward with the shadow color on this thing. Yeah, let's do what I wanted to. This is going to save me a ton of rendering time. So the shadow layer, I think it's on like hard mix or something like that, or hard light. There you go. Working pretty well. So I know I'm going to paint over this stuff in a second. So I'm being sloppy at first with the bricks that are in the background. Oops. No one's slowing down right when I get to an edge that I've already painted. There we go. Getting our shadow color in there. It's looking right. What I'm doing here is I'm really building a system for how I can go through and paint this stuff for all these other buildings and windows that I've got to create moving forward. And again, if it's working at that first layer, then it's likely going to work for the rest of my shot pretty well. So we start to zoom out, you can see how nice that's already starting to look. Got some more silver stuff here. You can go in and paint. Got some cement color, right? There we go. Nice and fast. And I'm cruising through this rooftop. So now each session that I sit down and paint, I'm going to be painting a different region and, really kind of committing to doing that space. The more that I start to cut away, right? So I think I'm going to leave these all the same color for now. I don't really feel like messing with them too much. And I don't want to get overly detailed with some of these things. So all this comes gray. This whole thing. Well, this opens me up for a really fast rendering technique too, because I'm doing all this stuff on the same layer, where I can take the the dodge tool and line up some of the stuff just to be able to get a little bit more highlight in there, all just on the color layer. So this is not me breaking this thing up because I've got, frankly, too much to paint. Giving myself a lot of work here. I might get some other colors later on within my scene to be able to go back and change the color of that pot, but we'll leave it as is for now. The wiring, the boxes, all this stuff can become different colors as well. That just breaks it up a little bit more and gives it a little bit more interest in the brick throughout that area. Let's zoom out. Looking pretty good so far. Cool. I think I'm in a good spot to be able to go back to my shadow layer. So I'll turn my shadow layer back on to normal. So we've got that hard purple in there. Now that I know it's working, let's go in and let's keep on painting some of this stuff out. And this is why we set our scenes up the way that we do, so that when I get to this part, it flows really, really fast. This is a good, quick, professional working technique. Some studios might agree on different art styles, different rendering processes, but for me, in the example that I'm giving you guys, this is the first time you're doing an urban environment. Work pretty good for the shading on this stuff. Box. Now you can get hyper detailed with the shadows and the shading as well, to where you're fixating, but the idea is to keep it moving with this stuff. All right, so saying my shadow is coming from that side, so not too much of this is really going to get shaded. just to break it up just a little bit so it's visually a little bit more interesting, but for the most part, get no shading here. That's okay. I had time, I'd add a little bit more noise to this. I could really paint the heck out of that metallic kind of rusty texture. But we're in a hurry. We could have very easily spent 6 weeks on this, on rendering urban environments. See you next time. Just trying to give a little bit of a shadow region there. Now we got the paint cans. Same deal. Half the paint cans are going to get rendered, shaded. Can still create that grounding line. And we got a little bit of shadow coming off. Like Bob Ross right now. Okay. Bottles on the ground. Now we got this chair. The chair kind of freaks me out. I don't want to mess up the shadow on it. I'm doing pretty good so far and rolling pretty quick. Man. Cool. That'll work for the chair for me. Go back to my main layer. Got to shade this in. Now we got some more choices to make, but go on, turn this back to hard mix. Nope. Hard light. Nope. Hard light. Yep, there we are. And have a look. Neat. So that's feeling pretty good. It's satisfying the lighting within this first shot and establishing where the light's coming from. Let's try applying the same idea now to the buildings over here on the left-hand side. So this next one that's most in the foreground, I'm gonna take my same purple layer, close them out for now. Probably come back to that. I just want to show you what this is gonna look like. All right, so scaffolding layer. Going to create a new layer over the top of it, and I've got my purple picked. Almost so I can find that purple again. There's all going to be in shadow. Notice I'm not using 100% on the brush. And I'm thinking about just what is my big shadow passes, because I can always go back if I have the time or energy and do a second pass with a half gradient or a half tone. But this is just making the big opening decisions for the scene for me. There we go. Because we're working smarter, not harder. Make some choices about how I want this to be shaded. Fill it in all the way and then use a subtractive method just to be able to give myself some lines and some quick little details for the lighting within this shot. Okay. Cool, that's what's remaining. Go in and highlight. So you've got metal color that I established before. There we go. Scaffolding's gray. It's much more accurate. It's got a highlight pass on it. And just for the sake of what I'm doing here, let's go in and let's throw in some other brick colors. There we go. Gives it just a little bit more interest. Zoom out here, check it, and yeah, it's looking pretty good for right now. Like a little bit more color on there, but that's okay. Let's keep it moving forward. Again, we're just doing some quick choices. Now let's go over and let's see what we can do with the water tower building. The water tower building is set back a little bit further. So first one that I'm going to do here is, again, grab my hard purple color, select it, and let's turn off the front building. I can actually see what I'm doing. shadow passed on this as well. We've got our light established. So we know there's some parts on this fully shaded. Haven't done any of the windows yet. Any glass here. Take this guy out, make some choices. This one. Getting all this is going to get shaded back here as well. This is one of those where I can start to mess with the saturation of the purple. So it doesn't feel quite as dark or as deep or as contrasty, just because it's got a little bit more distance to it. Again, I don't want to get overly detailed. I want to continue to just work fast and light with these. So I've got plenty of colors to be able to render out. So this whole thing, keep with the what we're doing, shade it out. Okay. This in depth. Yeah, worked pretty good for me. This wall, easy. Yes, shading. Okay. And then all of this back here. So it looks like I've got another panel that's all hitting the light. So that's not really going to get too much shading. The light's hitting a whole bunch of that. I could add it anywhere. Water towers. Half of those guys, just like the paint cans and boxes, are going to get shaded. Exactly. Exactly. There. Yeah. I like it. We established some rules with the rooftop, and now we're following those rules with all the other objects in the shot and the scene. That's what makes this start to work. How you break down, quickly render a complex city scene. Yes. Cool. That's all working. Trees, half trees. what I would do normally is go through and render out the shadow cast on all the buildings, and then go back, set them all to the layer interpretation that I want, then go back and start adding the shadows. Side. That's feeling pretty good. Okay, so now I can turn that to the hard light. Turn my front building back on. Right now, I think it's working pretty well. Got this layer, and now let's see if we've got. There. Let's start building again. Deciding a flat gray color here. Probably going to be some things that you miss, or could have done better or differently. That's the nature of these. Again, you can keep on working these city scenes for the rest of your lives if you want. And still, you're going to find more stuff you wish that you had done. Don't do that. Bushes over here. Okay. Might be the first one where we actually start coloring in some of the windows. Let's check out window color. We do the windows on a new layer. They tend to take a while. So what we're going to do here, these are residential places. It doesn't make sense that each window is going to look the exact same. Some are like blackout blinds, are going to have curtains. There's going to be some differentiator between these windows. Maybe some of the windows are open. You know, there's a lot of different things that we can do. So we need to, on this first one, solve for window variation. Window variation is going to be a lot. It'll help us navigate these scenes. Need some kind of secondary color on this building. Put that, we'll go stop right here for a second. All right, let's just turn on the front layer. You can see how good that's looking now with the shadows and the shading that's working within it. I like it. Once we add our second color, it should look even better. Let's find where I got that from. I think I was using like this color over here. We've got some green. The green's kind of nice. Does have shingles instead of a metal roof. So it's secondary color. Yeah, I think that well. Get off the window layer. And making choices. Like this color too much. So unfortunately, these are all the same layer. Change it. Yeah, that's not changing my purple at all. It's something a little bit different. All right. Time to change this color. Image adjustments. Replace color. Right, it's working fine for me. A little bit too close to the shadow color. Cool.